News Talk 730 AM and 95.3 FM welcomes you to D&D's Meet the Candidates Hour, a full hour of interviewing a candidate running for local office, learning what he or she is all about and what they have to offer if elected. Now, here are your hosts, Don Elwell and Dan Andrews.
Good morning, everybody. D&D Live. Meet the Candidates series. Mr. Andrews, how are you this morning?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. And, of course, we have a very special guest this morning, Mr. Mason Whidden, running for Highlands County School Board District 3. Mason, how are you, sir?
I am fine, sir. Thank you for having me.
No, that's great. That's awesome. We appreciate you being here. He also brought donuts, for those of you wondering. Already, he's way ahead. He gets extra bonus points from us.
Favorite.
He's already the favorite. And brought napkins, which, we get donuts sometimes every once in a while. We never get napkins. No.
If nothing else, he's prepared.
Yeah. Now we just need a lint roller to get these glazings off me. But anyway, so what we're going to do, Mason, is we're going to kind of start off with you basically telling everybody, if you would, introduce your bio and where do you come from? A lot of folks don't know you. A lot of folks do, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and I would like to reach out to the thousands of former students, parents, teachers, and citizens. I'm offering my candidacy out there to the voters of Highlands County because I feel that leadership and experience matter. My entire adult life has been in the service to my community and my nation. I'm a veteran of the United States Armed Forces and a teacher of over 40 years right here in Highlands County. I was honored to be awarded the Teacher of the Year 5 times and selected in 2017 to be our district's Teacher of the Year. I have been endorsed by 3 former superintendents of schools, and I'll take you down memory lane on some of these. Mrs. Ruth Hanley, Mr. Richard Farmer, and Mr. Wally Cox. And just 2 weeks ago, I was endorsed by the Heartland Realtors Association. I am a 5th-generation Floridian, proud of it, grew up in this area. I literally grew up between an orange grove and a cow pasture. I graduated from Sebring High School in 1975, where I was captain of my high school football team. And later I had the privilege to coach many Blue Streak athletes in baseball and football. I love coaching sports teams, but I also coach academic teams for over 20 years. You see, in my heart, I am a competitor, and I've always had high expectations of myself and others. I hope to bring that mindset to our school board. There has been and will be a lot of talk about school choice, and I have no problem with parents choosing how their children are educated. I believe in school choice, but I have something very important I would like to say to all of you out there in the listening audience. Make no mistake, I'm a cheerleader for public education, and I will work tirelessly to make that the choice of our parents, because competition is only going to make us better. I'm a runner. I go out every morning to run, but as I've gotten older through these times, I'm not as good as I used to be. But on July 4th, I ran the Firecracker 5K at the Hammock, and guess what? My time was the best they've been in years. Why is that? Because of competition. With school choice, we are now in competition with local private schools and home schools, and competition will make us only better. And if elected, I hope to make Highlands County Public Schools the best choice for students and parents.
Fantastic. Very good.
What did I tell you?
That was pretty good.
Prepared.
Okay, but just really quickly, what was your time on the 5K?
I ran a pace of 13:20. That's all I care about.
Holy cow, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah.
67, not bad.
No, that's really good.
You walked it?
No, sir, I ran. I tried to, but there were
Holy
still
cow.
people that were passing.
Seriously, I don't think I could drive it.
Never again need credit from this guy.
I know.
Gosh.
This is brutal. Go ahead, Dan.
I'll give him credit, but I'm not allowed to. I can't show bias.
No, I understand.
But I will say Mr. Whidden was and always has been one of my favorite teachers growing up. He was my teacher in Sebring Middle School.
Was he?
Yep. Taught government and taught us current events every morning.
Was that around the same time frame that you questioned your career?
I'll tell you what, I had some great, that span of time, I had some great kids in there. I mean, and they've actually reached out to me. If anything, this campaign, I've had kids blast from the past. Like,
that's good.
Reached out yesterday and they contact me. I even had someone contact me from Tokyo, Japan and said, I'd like to make a contribution to your campaign. How do you convert yen into dollars? And I said, I have no idea how you do that.
That's awesome. Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, now that we're talking with Mason Whidden. He's running for District 3 for the Highlands County School Board. And why don't you tell us what in your past history, both professionally and personally, prepares you best for this role?
Well, obviously, I think the 40 years of classroom experience is what would set me apart. I've also been on what's called a curriculum leadership team, which about this time right now, we would be doing some deep diving into the data, looking at our individual scores, looking even so far as the individual student scores to see where we could get better. Data is so important now. You see it out there. School grades are starting to be announced. And I will tell you that data is what drives a lot of the schools and their decisions. So with that in mind, I'll be able to do that. My plan, Dan and Dawn, is to be in the schools and talking with teachers. And I think they can relate to me because at one time I was one of them. And I feel I'll have that ability to talk with them and relate to them.
Very good. I have another question for you in regards to, of course, we just saw, I think it was yesterday, we just got the announcement of many of the school grades and the district grades and things like that. So what's your reaction to the results that were posted so far?
Well, yes, sir. I have not had a chance to really do, like I call that, deep dive into the data, but I've looked over some things. But first of all, I want to make some congratulations out there to Courtney Floyd and the staff at Lake Placid Elementary, bringing their grade up from a C to an A. That is so awesome. We did have, if you break these scores down, 1A, 7 B schools, and 8 C schools. And Hill-Gustaf Middle School under Shane Ward, they improved their score from a C to a B.
Nice.
Park Elementary under Blake Germain went from a C to a B, and Fred Wild under Megan Mosheen went from a C to a B. So a lot of improvement. And like in athletics, and I think you can relate to this, y'all, is that if you keep getting better, you keep building on those successes and improving on them. And that's what I do. I have an expectation. I come into a situation and I have a high expectation. I've only had it for myself and my students, so Dan can relate to that really well. I came in the classroom, this was my expectations. I want to continue that on the board and walk into the situation and say, this is what we want to do. We want to make public schools the best choice for parents.
Very good.
Yeah, and one note, this just came out. I guess the Lake Placid Elementary is actually logged as an incomplete right now instead of an A. Because they have to test a certain percentage. 94% of the students have to be tested. Okay. And for some reason, there was a technical issue, and their report showed 93. They think they're closer to 98% that they tested. So
once they get that cleared up.
So once they get that cleared up, which unfortunately isn't a quick process, but it does. I think it was just updated to show incomplete. But once they get the percentage updated, it should be right.
Congratulations on your probable A.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that. So anyhow,
good.
There we go.
Very good. All right, you've got the next question, sir.
Yep. So, Mr. Whidden, if you want to, if you would share a little bit, I think the listening audience would like to know about your family, and their role in you running for school board.
Well, my wife, I've been married to her for 43 years, is Sandy Whidden, and she was a longtime principal at Sebring Middle School, and she had 10 A's in her career. That's 15 years, and that is phenomenal. And I always say my claim to fame is being married to my wife, Sandy. But in all honesty, she's
married up.
I'm married above my pay grade, as we used to say.
That's good.
But I will tell you this, she's a remarkable woman and not only a fantastic educator. Between us, I think we have 76, 77 years of education experience between us.
Wow.
And just a lovely lady. My son, Gary Whidden, Dan and I have something that we can brag on together. They're both graduates of service academies. And I'll take a little bit of time to tell you a little about the service academies. My son went to West Point. Dan's went to the Air Force Academy, which my son taught there for a while. But I will tell you, they take the best and the brightest. I mean, you look at someone who's got all these high SAT scores and you think, well, this guy's like a little nerd. Well, what kind of officer is going to lead men into battle and looks like that? So they have to be well-rounded physically, mentally, and emotionally. And then they go through a grueling process, what's called beast barracks at West Point. And I've seen what the Air Force Academy kids are going through. It's just constant harassment. But to do what, you all? They graduate. And my son, his next stop when he graduated from West Point was Iraq, the streets of Baghdad. And, he played football at West Point. He is, like I said, a remarkable man. Our daughter, Kristen's our special girl. She's special needs. She suffers from autism, but she always will be with us.
I see you guys walking the lake.
Yes, sir. Yes, and that's something that's so important to us, is to make her happy, to keep her, involved in things. So she'll always be our special girl.
Well, and I think following up on that, I think the great thing for Highlands County is, Matthew and Gary aren't the only. We have several people that have gone on to the academies and graduated the academies. We have 2 at academies right now. Mm-hmm. We have 3 that are in the application process to try to get a what's it called? From the congressional nomination. Mm-hmm. So that's just a testament, I think, to the teachers within Highlands County. And let me lead to our next question is. Don and I both feel that the teachers are the greatest assets, or one of the greatest assets that we have in the school system. So why don't you expound a little bit on how your relationship as a school board member, how you're going to be able to correlate and work with the boots on the ground.
Exactly. Well, speaking of boots on the ground, I am going to be in schools immediately. I want to talk to teachers. I want to sometimes just give them a pat on the back. Just tell them, hey, thanks for everything that you have done. I can relate to teachers. I understand what they're dealing with. My wife, Sandy, works with beginning teachers right now, and she tells you the amount of pressure on these young teachers to pass content exams, to go through all the litany of things they have to do. It's amazing what our young teachers are going through. Right now we have new teacher orientation going on right now, and I just really thank them. I mean, the listening audience out there, you probably owe something to a teacher and what they've done for you. When I was growing up, teachers they were so special to me. They had that special power. And I said to myself, I want to be like them, especially my coaches. And I said to myself, I want to be a teacher. And sure enough, when I graduated from college, I worked at the sheriff's department for a while, but I wanted to do something different with my life. And I decided I would go into teaching, and I have not regretted it. I mean, the rewards are very simple. I've got one sitting right next to me, and I just appreciate the man he's become. People have written to me, they've contacted me, thanking me for what I made in their lives. And teachers out there, you are making a difference, and we appreciate you all.
Very good. Again, talking, of course, with Mason Whidden. He is a candidate for Highlands County School Board District 3. We're just scratching the surface here, Mr. Whidden. We've got all kinds of questions coming up, including some questions about our current school system that we want to certainly talk to you about as the D&D Live Meet the Candidates series continues. D&D Live Meet the Candidates series continues with Mr. Mason Whidden, a candidate for Highlands County School Board District number 3. All right, sir. So, of all the things that are going on at the school board and, of course, in our school district, what do you feel is the number one top problem that needs to be addressed and would be addressed if you were elected onto the school board?
Well, personally, I feel we need to work on making our public schools the choice for parents. And how do we do that? First of all, we're going to go into the schools. We're going to make sure that parents look at a school and say, that is the choice for my child. And how do we do that? We make sure our curriculum is the best. We make sure there's some really great opportunities coming in, especially with the career and technical education. I was just at the last school board meeting. We have got welding labs coming in now where they actually have 2 people at a welding station, and they're going to go into that welding lab and they're going to learn all kinds of skills. Where will that take them? Well, first of all, it will take them into a high-paying job. They will graduate from high school, and in some cases, they'll make a lot more money. Also, it'll affect their attitude and behavior. Why am I going to screw up in school when I got a job waiting for me, perhaps? So I'm going to start working on my attitude, where I'm going to be dealing with people. I think most people can do the job. It's just their attitude they have. And so what we're trying to do is, as a teacher, I'm trying to work on an attitude, because you may be successful from an intellectual standpoint, but you don't have the proper attitude. And I think you put in factors like, socialization and how you deal with people. It can mean a lot. But I also want to go into schools and make sure that our curriculum, our teachers are happy with the curriculum, that they can share those things with me, although I have no control over curriculum. There's 2 areas that the budget works with. There's budgets and policies, and a lot of the policies brought down from Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that we can work on some things. I'm not at liberty to say what I'd like to work at right now, but I will tell you this. There are some things coming down from Tallahassee. I think that we have a pretty good relationship with our legislative group, and maybe bringing this to their attention about what needs to be changed. Because, guys, they're up in Tallahassee. They don't sometimes see what happens in our public schools. And they make policy. They don't understand what they have just done.
Sure.
Yeah, so that kind of falls in line with my next question. These goals and objectives are great, But how do you, as a school board member, make those things happen? Because as you talked about, you're as a school board member, you're a policy maker.
Yes, sir.
Not necessarily delving into the curriculum and things like that. So how do you lead from the school board, or how do you see your role leading from the school board to make sure that those things can be implemented?
Well, as I said before, Dan, I'm going to be, from day one, in the schools. I'm going to be talking with teachers. I'll be talking with administrators. I'll be asking them candid opinions from them. What can we do to help you? And I will say this. A lot of teachers feel that sometimes all they want is just a pat on the back. And I think that's important to let them know. Facebook's a powerful tool, and I've been sending out congratulatory messages to a lot of people right now. It's a good job of what you have done, because you have sat in that classroom for 180 days, and you've done nothing but focus on making the lives of your children better, that they will do well in that test. And I want them to be recognized.
Very good. So, of either current school board or past school board members, which ones do you feel that you best align with?
Wow. I got to think about that one for a moment.
I knew you wouldn't have that one written down.
No, I didn't. Nicole Radomski was actually on my social studies team. And Nicole, I know you might remember those morning meetings that we would have, because we would look at the data. I always thought that she was open for new ideas, and she came in. I worked with Reese Martin. He was an agriculture teacher at Sebring Middle School. Donna Howerton, a very special woman out there, and I had a gifted issue one time, and she came straight down there within days. So again, Jan Shoup sat down with me and talked to me about the pitfalls of taking this job, but I really appreciate what she has done. Also, some past superintendents were some big mentors for me. Mrs. Ruth Hanley, I just worshiped her, and still do to this day. Mr. Richard Farmer, another great superintendent. Mr. Wally Cox. But I can go back even further into that greatest generation of Dr. Farrell Smith, who was a member and just was so good, and even Mr. Douglas, superintendents. Those were the men and women who made a big impact on my life, because I consider them the greatest generation.
Okay, so looking back at your career, and let's focus on the school side. If you could change one decision that you made through that career, which one comes to mind?
Oh boy, the one decision would be probably. And one side of me says, I'm glad I was in the classroom, but I wish that perhaps I could have moved into administration. I think I could have been a really great principal, but I think the calling of the classroom was too much for me. I did not want to move away from the kids. I did start my master's program, but I felt like the kids were such a big draw to me. I feed off the kids, and I fed off their excitement. I love being in the classroom. And I can tell you, my wife, she said from day one, she loved being a principal, but she was always a classroom teacher. So my biggest regret was probably not moving into administration and becoming a principal.
Okay. Very good.
And let me ask you this one here, because we talk a little bit about a lot of the things that are your qualifications, if you will, in your past and such like that for the position. If you're elected, what do you think is going to be the hardest thing for you to learn, or the toughest part of the position for you?
This journey for me started a year and a half ago. And I started going to school board meetings, and people would walk up to me and they'd say, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm just kind of observing, seeing what's going on." And then as we got closer, and over a year and a half we got closer, I started making meetings with certain individuals within the district office, finance, curriculum. They started giving me some good courses on the policy and the budget of the school board. So then in August, I announced my candidacy. But this has been a year and a half journey for me, where I've talked to a lot of different people, and I prepared myself, because at first I didn't know I really wanted to do this. I mean, I'm retired, I'm having a great life, and suddenly I'm back in the fray again. So I'm thinking, do I really want to do this? But I think the kids deserve it, and that's why I'm here.
Okay.
So if given the opportunity to make a change, what is your opinion of elected versus appointed superintendents?
I'm going to mention a name that some of you out there in the listening audience may have heard. His name was Mr. Cecil Heston, and he was really a political icon. Again, one of my political mentors. He said, Mason, I am against anything that takes the political power away from the people. And I thought he had a pretty good point there. There is something to be said about the people electing their representatives. But also, if you look at the number of appointed superintendents, I personally would go with the elected one. But there are cases for both that we could have those. And again, I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but I did really think hard about that, where people have the power to elect a superintendent as opposed to appointed superintendents. So there's good and bad for both.
Well,
Okay.
and the argument there could be the school board is elected, so
Yes.
they do have representation
True.
through the election, through the school board members, and then the school board members appoint. The concern we hear the most is the budget of the Highlands County School Board is the largest budget managed within Highlands County.
Yes, it is.
And so why don't you expound a little bit on what you think about that process and managing that size of a budget? And of course, you're going to be on the policy side of it,
Absolutely.
but if elected, so...
Well, if those that come and know me, I live in the same house I've lived in for 40 years. It's paid for. And I go by that mantra. I think government should go by that mantra. Only buy what you can afford. Only do what you can pay for. And I will be a staunch conservative when it comes to budget items. I will look at every line item and do we really need that? And I will tell you, I'm not quite well versed on it. I think there's going to be a big learning curve when it comes to the budget because you're dealing with a huge budget. But I will tell you this, I will look at every line item and make sure that we spend our money wisely. And I have the same budget attitude that I have in my personal life towards our school budget.
All right. Mason, so how, of course, talking with Mason Whidden, candidate for Highlands County School Board, District 3. Mason, how do people get in touch with you? Do you have a website or a Facebook page?
Yes, sir. I do have a Facebook page. Actually, I have two of them. And that's how a lot of people have been contacting me. And, of course, a former student contacted Dan the other day and emailed me. But I do have a lot of my contacts are through Facebook. I don't have a web page, but Mason Whidden for School Board District 3 or just Mason Whidden on Facebook.
Can't miss them that way. Very good. And we've got many more questions, including a couple questions from listeners and such that we want to make sure that we interject as well. Of course, Mason Whidden, candidate for Highlands County School Board District 3, and he will be right back. Don Elwell, Dan Andrews, D&D Live, Meet the Candidates series, of course, here with Mr. Mason Whidden, candidate for Highlands County School Board District number 3. Dan, I think you've got the next question, sir. Go right ahead.
Sure. So this question, once my mic's on, this will be two-part question. So there was a little bit of a dust-up about 2 years ago as it related to sex education in the school system. Mm-hmm. So the first question is, what is your overall opinion about how we got there and how it was resolved? So that's the first part. And then the second part is, at what grade level do you feel sex education should be taught in the school system?
Well, I really did not involve myself in the controversy in that because I left the district in 2019. But I will tell you that I sat in on about 2 years of this. And what I saw was probably very appropriate for students in that particular age. I heard some things happen differently. I'm not privy to what happened or what the content was, but I will tell you that I think that the role of parents is to teach their children about sexuality, and sometimes parents don't feel comfortable with this. I do say that there's an opt-out program, so if you as a parent out there would feel like, I'm not really comfortable talking about sexuality with my child, it's a very delicate subject. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you this, maybe you could say, well, I would like to find out more about it. And they will be glad to tell you about this. When I was involved in the particular program, we took the boys and the girls in separate areas, and we just basically rode herd on them and made sure they pay attention. And you know how boys can be, and they were basically like herding a bunch of wild cats, We had to get them focused on it.
Look at him when you're talking.
But and I thought they paid very good attention to it. But as far as what you're talking about, the sex eds and stuff, I didn't see anything that would have been inappropriate for them from my angle. But again, I left the district in 2019.
Okay. And then what age do you feel that should be introduced to the students?
As a parent, I think probably around 8th grade. That's when I started talking with that. Maybe, you start involving your children in some discussions and talking with them. I think they're mature at that. But, there's a lot of different kids that mature at different ages, they're psychologically and physically. So they might be ready as early as 7th grade. But I would say probably an average age would be 8th grade.
Yeah, and one of the biggest problems we see is with the devices that the kids have now.
Yes.
They have access to things that they didn't have access to even 10 years ago. So
right.
Unfortunately, I think makes that age a little younger. That it's necessary if you feel it's necessary. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. One of the questions I have is of course one of the largest groups of folks in Highlands County is of course the teachers. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the teachers before. explain to them, if they're listening, or they listen perhaps even in the future, explain to them why you're the best candidate for this position.
Teachers, let me just say you one thing. I am one of you. For 40 years, I was in the classroom. I worked covering benchmarks. I did lesson plans. My whole life centered around my students. And for the most part, I am richly rewarded by where those young men and women and what they became. They became doctors and lawyers. And like I said before, a very successful young man sitting right next to me. That was my reward for teaching. I will also say that do the best you can every day. You know that you'll have the support of this particular board member if I'm elected.
All right, moving on from that. How do you feel religion should be implemented in the school system, and do you feel that it should be mandated in schools?
You know, this is a really great question, and I'm glad you asked this one because I taught Constitution. And kids would come up to me, we talked about freedom of religion, and they would say, Mr. Whidden, why can't we pray in school? I said, but honey, you can pray in school. You could have a gathering right now, and you can pray for a test. You can bring your Bible, your Quran, the Torah in. It's just that school cannot be involved in it. As a teacher, I cannot lead you in a school prayer. But you, and I had a lot of leaders in school, they would say, can I lead a prayer before maybe our test? I'd say absolutely. So I want to let the voters know out there too that God is alive and well in schools today. Whenever there's testing, you will have God.
Amen to that.
no doubt, yeah.
I did a lot of praying that did me no good.
And yet you still believe.
Yes, I do.
He was unfortunately busy with more important things at the time.
Yes,
yeah,
distractions.
Probably, rather than helping you with the old algebra thing.
All right, this isn't about me. Let's move on.
No, that's good. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about, I guess the best way to put it is with the campaign. Of course, you mentioned before you've been doing this unofficially for a little while, for about a year or so, and then kind of kicked it back in. What have you found to be the most challenging part of your run for office? What has been kind of, like I said, most challenging?
The challenging part is, of course, I've enjoyed this campaign. I have thoroughly loved it. It gave me a chance to reconnect with old friends and former students and classmates out there. But I will tell you, there's the divisiveness in this country. There really is. And I think that there's someone behind it. Anybody would say there's not outside actors somewhere internationally that's trying to promote divisiveness in this country. They're out there. And every day I see it. In the media, the fear-mongering that we have, the things that are going on in the nation. And I really believe as a nation, we need to unite and come together as a whole. You know, right after 9/11, my son was at his first year at West Point, and we flew up there. And I saw armed guards in the Newark airport there. And I had not seen armed guards, armed soldiers, since I was in Europe. And I will tell you this, I said to myself, what's going on with this country? But we united. You saw flags everywhere. People were standing and pledging allegiance to the flag with more fervor than before. It reunited the country. But if anything I found out from this campaign, I think we're divided as a nation. And I think that we need to heal those wounds.
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay, so when it comes to school board, currently there are not term limits. Superintendent, there are, but not school board members. Yes, so how do you feel about term limits, and is that something you would support from a school board?
Let me tell you the best type of term limits. You want to know what they are? The voters. The voters determine how long someone stays in office. Now, does that mean I'm for term limits? I mean, when you look at Franklin Roosevelt, 4 terms. He actually died in his 4th term. But I think the people they said to themselves, we needed Roosevelt during these times of World War II. If we look at someone and we say, well, they've only been in office so long, but do we need to get rid of them? The voters make that decision. So I'm kind of mixed on term limits. I seem to be talking out of both sides of my mouth a lot today, unfortunately. I'm not even a politician, but I will tell you I like both of them. But really the true test of a politician's good work is the voters. And you know that as well as I do, Don, that being elected, you have to do your job. And if not, the voters will say, goodbye, we'll bring in someone new.
Yep, I've seen incumbents fall, and I've seen new people overtake them fairly quickly just because again of dissatisfaction with the job they're doing. So I've seen the system work the way that it's supposed to.
And I've heard a lot of good things about you, Don, because especially during the hurricane, you kept the voters informed, and that goes a long way with the voters of bringing them back and voting for you. So you have that ability to continue to do that job. Why not continue in office sometimes?
Well, and I think, Dandy, I think you mentioned, I think you might have gotten it backwards a little bit. There are school board term limits right now for school board, but not for superintendents. I think you said it the other way around.
Okay.
But the school board I know is 8 years. And of course, it's not retroactive, so obviously
that's right. That's why we have some people that are there
they're a
longer.
little longer, right? But it's 8 years starting on this date, if you will. But I agree with you. I think that unfortunately the term limits toss out the good with the bad.
Yes, sir.
So,
unfortunately.
Well, and just to debate that a little bit because we're having fun discussion here. I think at the local level, it's a little different than at the national level. At the national level, money runs those campaigns,
they do. Yeah.
And those elected officials that get entrenched in the system, they always have so much money in their coffers that it's almost impossible to knock them off.
Exactly.
And so that I can see a different structure depending on local versus national politics because of the dollars and cents involved. I mean, these guys have war chests that have millions and millions of dollars in them at any given moment. I mean, you're talking about congressional congressmen. I mean, they run every 2 years.
Yeah,
and
always running.
And those who are in office always have about anywhere from $10 to $100 million in the coffers. It's almost impossible for somebody to come in and knock them off because.
And
of
you
that.
wore where their true allegiance lies
To money,
to money or to the voters.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
exactly.
Sure.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I've seen, I'm sure you've seen it as well, is that the current race for superintendent is a little divisive.
Yes, sir. It seems to be.
It seems like it's a pretty good. That one's probably the most contested race, if you will, locally anyway. Where do you stand in regards to, would you be able to support either one of those superintendents and work with both of them if either one wins?
Yes, sir. I can tell you, those that know me know that I can work with anybody. I know both the candidates and work closely with them. I once said that Brenda Longshore rode through a driving rainstorm on I-4 to come see me get awarded the District Teacher of the Year in the state of Florida. That was really important to me. But also I've worked with Chris Doty. He's a good man. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of character. And I have friends in both sides. So I really would like to think I could work with both of those individuals because to me, they're both fine individuals and I like them both and respect them both.
Very good. And of course, we're talking with Mason Whidden. Mason running for Highlands County School Board District number 3. And you can reach him on Facebook. He's got a couple pages. One's probably more personal. And then there's one that's dedicated just to this campaign right now. We've got a few more questions coming for you. And we're going to lighten the mood on a couple questions as well. Get to know a little bit more about Mason Whidden, the person himself, as the D&D Live Meet the Candidate series continues.
Hey, it's Dan Andrews with D&D Live, and we're taking the show on the road. That's right, we're going to the Caladium Festival this Friday.
And what a great show it's going to be. We're going to have both candidates for superintendent of schools, Chris Doty and Brenda Longshore, will be live with us down at the Caladium Festival on Friday's show from 8 to 10. So please be sure to tune in for this one. News Talk 730 AM, 95.3 FM, and newstalk730am.com.
Man, who are those sexy voices I just heard?
Oh, I was going to say goons.
I did like the music, though.
There you go. Okay. It's great that that's what you took away from that. D&D Live, Meet the Candidate series.
So we're here with Mason Whidden, who's running for District 3 for the school board, Highlands County School Board.
Exactly.
And tomorrow we'll be on the road down at the Caladium Festival where we're going to have the two running for superintendent. That should be interesting. I'm glad I get to be referee.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. We were just talking about that just a second ago with Mason. Obviously, he's saying that he's going to be eager to work with whoever is the one that comes out of it, and we're looking forward to having that one be decided in just another month or so.
Yep.
So go right ahead, sir.
Okay. So one more kind of in the realm of school board before we have some fun.
Fire away.
What would you like to see the school board do that they aren't currently doing? Is there anything that you would like to see them do that they aren't currently doing?
Something like to do. A teacher did mention this once, and I don't want to name the name, but she thought that the board members could probably spend a little bit more time in classrooms. So if I could maybe put my finger on it, maybe seeing more. Although I think some of our new board members are out there quite a bit in the classrooms, but sometimes you get bogged down with your daily life, and it's hard to get in classrooms. But if I had a wish, it would be that we would be in the classrooms more and just sitting with them and seeing what was going on.
Yeah, and it seems like on the school board we have a kind of a split between those school board members that have day jobs and those who this is their primary job.
Yes.
And so for you, how is that going to fit?
Well, I'm
into your
retired,
daily, right?
and that means that I can devote my time to the students and the teachers in our district, and I will plan to do that.
Okay.
Well, I think anybody is going to appreciate that. I know when I ran hotels, just making some beds, cooking some omelets, doing those types of things like that. But walking a mile in their shoes is
absolutely.
Is
and I'm from the school of leading from the front, and that means I'm down there with them. If the trash has to be taken out of the school, you'll see me doing it. There's no job that will be beneath me.
Very good. All right, so let's lighten up the mood a little bit, because you've been here in Highlands County for how many years?
I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. As a matter of fact, you go over to Paynes Creek State Park, you'll see one of my relatives on a plaque over there that were actually killed by the Seminole Indians. So my family is long-term pioneers. I love the movie the book, The Land Remembered.
Yeah, that's a great book.
It's a great book, and I just relate so much to that with my pioneer family. So hearing so much about the history, there was no doubt that I would become a history teacher, and that's where I'm at.
All right. Well, if you've listened to our show before, you will know that and if you have eyes, you'll know that I love food. And so let's talk a little bit about some of your favorite Highlands County restaurants. Give me your top 2 or 3 if you had to go out for lunch or dinner. Where would they be?
For those that people don't know what this is, I'm a Florida cracker, and we definitely like Florida cracker food. And I love to go out to the Gator Shack once in a while.
Yes.
And I took my grandson out there, and I said, John Mason, would you like to have some gator bites? He said, this comes from gator? I said, yes, sir. The tail. They fried them up, and he said, this tastes pretty good, Grandpa. It tastes like chicken. I said, the story of my life. Every time we would eat something, it would taste like chicken. Eat some possum. Oh, tastes like chicken. Armadillo tastes like chicken. But I love the Gator Shack. It's a great place.
Have you eaten a lot of possum and armadillo?
My dad had a rule. You shoot something, you had to eat it. And to me, it was a greasy, slimy taste.
Yeah.
But no.
I've had it once.
Oh,
did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Swamp cabbage, grits. I know some people out there can relate to this. So.
Sure, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
so Gator Shack will be on the list. Any other places?
I love the Watering Hole too, and that's another great place. More refined, I think. But the Gator Shack out there, right off Arbuckle Creek. I took my grandsons out canoeing out on the Arbuckle Creek. We came back and did the Gator Shack and finished up with some gator bites. That's a perfect Father's Day.
All right, how about lunch?
Lunch, where I'm going later on?
Where?
I'm going to the Wild Turkey.
There you go.
I'm going to Wild Turkey.
Yep.
A few years back when I was here at this local National Guard unit, we had some high-ranking officers came through, and they said, Whidden, where can we go to get some good food? I said, well, go right across the street, sir. At the Wild Turkey, you will enjoy it. I came back the next morning to the Armory, and they said, Whidden, you definitely up for promotion, because that was some of the best food we'd ate. So the Wild Turkey.
Now, are you a fast food guy at all?
Oh,
or
no, sir. I don't do fast food.
Sure, no, neither me.
No.
Okay. No, I was just wondering, because we, of course, as you I'm sure have heard, there's a couple of them either coming into town or already just recently opened between Chick-fil-A and Culver's and Chipotle.
Yeah, well, I'm not, again, much of a fan of the fast food restaurants, but I tell you, my grandchildren just slurp it up. They love Culver's, they love Chick-fil-A, and I'll take them because, Grandpa does whatever grandchildren want to do.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so continuing along that theme, what's your favorite thing to do in Highlands County? Given the opportunity to do anything with whoever, what would be your favorite thing?
I love always spending time with my wife, 43 years, and she never gets tired. I just love to be around her. But I will tell you, there's a little known secret here, and I hate to say this. There's a wonderful canoe trail called Burnout Bridge on Arbuckle Creek Road. And I'm going to tell you what, if you go on there, it's like heaven, and you're floating in heaven. It's just a beautiful spot. My wife and I go there occasionally, and it's just a remarkable spot. And I love to scuba dive. I was just back from the Cayman Islands. I did some scuba diving down there, and really enjoy that.
Okay.
And I love to read. I read constantly.
Very good. All right, excellent. Now, do you have any political figures, elected officials, national, statewide, anybody like that you kind of model yourself after?
Ronald Reagan was my hero back in the 80s, and he actually persuaded me at the age of 25 years old to join the Army. At 25, I was teaching. And he was such a man, a great communicator. And at that point, he talked about patriotism, giving something back to your country. And I felt like, you know what? I haven't done my job. So I enlisted. I went in the Army National Guard, showed up for boot camp, went to basic training. Drill sergeant said, "What the heck are you doing here?" And I said, "I don't know what I'm doing here." But you know what? It was the most rewarding experience serving in the Armed Forces of the United States for 10 years. My son, a graduate of West Point, serves in the military. He looks back on his career with a lot of honor. And just like your son does, it takes a special kind of young man and woman to do what they do.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I thought we were heading to the closing.
No. We
still
got another
some
question.
time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I didn't have another question
No, we're
planned.
rock and rolling here.
So why don't you go ahead, Don, if you got something. I didn't have one lined up. But
Okay.
well,
Caught you off
okay.
guard there.
Well, we can tackle this.
Go ahead.
What do you feel? And Don may have touched on this a little bit earlier. But what do you feel are going to be the easiest or hardest things to learn if elected?
I think this first year is going to be a huge learning curve, and I think this just looking at the budget for one thing. I mean, I'm looking at my little budget for my family, and you're looking at this huge budget with the district, and there's just so many things. When I spoke to the young lady up at the district office, going through all of these certain areas, and for me, it's going to be the challenge is to go through. I mean, the working with the teachers, that's going to be a snap. Just working with this budget and determining where all this money is going to me. And I think you go through this with your work with the commission. It's just a huge budget. And to look at it and say, what do we do with this budget? How do we work with it? Do we leave anybody out? Or what can we do? That's probably going to be my biggest challenge.
Sure. Well, and like I said, it's going to be the longest road, and that's going to take a few years all by itself. Again, kind of lending itself back to term limits. By the time you get it kind of mastered, you may have to go a different direction there.
Exactly.
So what do you have next? Now, of course, as we know, vote by mail ballots already out there. They've already gotten about 1,500 or so back in that I think have already been turned in. But early voting starts on August 10th. Election day, of course, is on August 20th. So what's your next appearances, or what else do you have going on?
Well, of course, the biggest thing I'm doing now is to get everybody organized for the early voting and going to the 3 different precincts and putting them in 2-hour time slots. And so a lot of people came forward and say, what can I do to help? I'm going to throw you at the Penny Isle Government Center at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the dead of Florida heat.
Bring a tent. Do the tent thing. Yeah, for sure.
We're working on the organization of that and then sending them out to the different precincts on August the 20th, which is voting day. It's just a lot of organization, and we're reaching out to people, and we're just really happy that people are coming forward and saying, what can I do to help? Not only monetarily, but what can I do time-wise? My next appearance, it kind of comes and goes because people will call me and say, will you speak to this group?
Sure.
Or, I know my next scheduled event, I know with you all, I think it's the 16th, perhaps.
That sounds right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
With the debate?
With the debate. Yeah. It's the last of the debates, I think.
I've spoke in numerous places, but I'm actually getting more people would call me up and say, would you speak at our group? And probably as a result of this particular event, I may have some people on my voicemail right now saying, would you come and speak?
Well, that's good, though. At least you're getting out there, and that's many places that you can learn more about Mason.
Yes,
Yep. So this is a nonpartisan election, but listeners want to know, how do you affiliate or how do you align? Left, far left, right, far right,
Yes,
in
sir.
the middle?
Yep.
Are you going to take the political route here and say, I see a little bit of both?
Yes, sir. I am a considered non-party affiliation here. I do not belong to the Democratic Party. I do not belong to the Republican Party. I go for the issues, not the philosophy of the particular party. And I think if you look at the numbers of independents, they are rapidly growing. And I think there's something to be said about looking at the issues, looking at the candidate instead of the party. And I would like the people to look at me and say, as opposed to someone that would just vote straight Republican or Democrat, they vote on that candidate and what that candidate stands for. And I think you're going to find more and more people are gravitating towards that.
Okay. Very good. All right. Now, so with the last 90 seconds or so, Mason, if you would just kind of do a little bit of a wrap up, tell people why they should vote for you, and ask for that vote on August 20th.
Thank you very much, y'all. And I set out on this journey over a year and a half ago, attending school board meetings and several workshops. The latest being just a reading workshop held 2 days ago at the district office. I have met with the Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Curriculum, the Assistant Superintendent of Finance, to gather as much information as I could. I've continued to work with students since my retirement. I've been proctoring testing. I've been working with 3rd graders at Ag Venture. I've been judging entrepreneurial competition hosted by the Children's Museum. I've become a motivational speaker at several middle schools in the area, and I've taught a class to 8th graders who are struggling, and they brought me in to see if I could help them with their end-of-course exams. And as a result of this, I did. 86% passed their state exam. For those that don't know me, I'm an action-oriented individual with high expectations. And that expectation is to make our public schools the best they can be. I hope this discussion you've had with us has convinced you to vote for me, because 2 weeks from today, early voting will begin Tuesday, August the 8th, and the general election is August the 20th. My name is Mason Whidden. My name will be last on the ballot, but I will always put children first. Thank you for having me, guys.
Very good. Thank you.
you.
Certainly appreciate it. And of course, D&D Live, don't forget tomorrow. Well, of course, next week, we also have Javita McKinney, who is also a candidate for Highlands County School Board District 3. So we will have her in next Thursday. But tomorrow, we got it's not the Rumble in the Jungle. What are we going to call this? We got to call this the Clamor and the Caladiums is what I kind of called it last night.
That'll work. But what we do know of both candidates is they will be respectful and they will be professional. And so we're just going to try to drag them into
the mud.
Not being.
No, just kidding. So anyway, of course, Chris Doty, Brenda Longshore, both our Highlands County Superintendent candidates will be live for the 90-minute debate. The show starts at 8 o'clock. The debate starts at 8:30, live from the Lake Placid Caladium Festival, the 33rd annual Caladium Festival down Lake Placid. We certainly appreciate everybody listening today, and we hope that you will be able to listen again tomorrow. Should be a fun one. And don't forget, this one will be archived also, so you can listen to it hundreds of times over and listen to what Mr. Whidden has to say.